Welcome to the QEM Heroes webinar series. I'm Christine Wood, and I serve as the Assistant Program Director for the Heroes Fellows Program at QEM. For more than 30 years, QEM has been a national catalyst for STEM education transformation and research capacity building. Currently, the QEM network serves nearly 900 colleges and universities and reaches more than 8,000 individuals nationwide. This webinar is part of the QEM Heroes Initiative. The Heroes program brings together experienced researchers who have worked in federal agencies to lend their expertise and support to the STEM research and education communities. Our fellows are here to provide tools and tips for navigating the funding landscape, developing STEM programs and partnerships, and improving talent retention in in-demand fields. We hope this series promotes engagement with our Heroes Fellows and provides valuable resources to our participants. During the webinar, please use the Q&A tool to ask questions of the panelist. The panelists and moderators will monitor and answer questions during the webinar as time allows. Once the presentation is over, we will moderate a discussion, and attendees will have the opportunity to raise their hands and ask questions live during the webinar and after. The webinar recordings and slides will be available in the QEM Resource Hub. By attending this webinar, you will be added to the QEM network and granted access to the Resource Hub. And now I am happy to introduce our presenter today. Kenneth Wright retired from NASA after 40 years of federal service, where he most recently served as a senior policy advisor in the Office of Technology, Policy, and Strategy. Other roles during his career including Director of the NASA Inventions and Contributions Board, Executive Director for the Science and Technology Partnerships Forum, and Agency Lead for Innovation. Ken also served 2 years in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, where he led the National Science and Technology Council and lab to market activities. Career highlights include receiving NASA's Outstanding Leadership and Exceptional Service Medals and being inducted into the Academy of Distinguished Alumni for Virginia Tech College of Industrial and Systems Engineering. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Ken and get this webinar started.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate it. And it's really good to be here with everyone today. And I'm excited to be able to kick off this presentation, which I'll be doing today on public interest technology and the Pitt University Network. Before we get into the presentation, I just had a couple polls that we're going to pull up for you just to see who we have on the call and who's in the room today. So the first poll question, and you'll see Christine's going to bring that up, and is which career position best describes you? When you can see undergrad, grad student, faculty, college admin, QEM Heroes Fellows. It's good to have my other fellows here as well, or none of the above. And then the second question, which you will also see, is have you ever heard of the Pitt University Network or Pitt in general? So Christine, let me know when everyone has kind of gotten the votes in.
Give folks a little bit of time to respond to the polls.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share results.
Great. It's really good. Good mix there. What about the second question? Does that one have results yet?
Yep.
Oh, maybe I have to scroll down a little bit. There we go. All right. Good. Most of the folks haven't heard of Pitt or Pitt UN, so I encourage those who have heard of that to chime in, as well as those who haven't, with any questions throughout. So we'll be using the Q&A tool in order to be able to gather that input throughout the session. So with that, I'm going to close this out. That just gives me a feel for where I can make the best use of our time today. And first thing I want to do is talk about the webinar goals. But before I jump into the goals, I gotta congratulate the men's and women's hockey teams at the Olympics. Both of those got the gold medal for goals in overtime. So I hope our goals today will excite you almost as much as I got excited watching those hockey games. So the first goal today is just to be able to talk a little bit about what is public interest technology or PIT, and then look at what some of the PIT characteristics and why PIT even is around. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Pitt University Network itself and how you can engage with that, as well as some resources I'll provide at the end of the presentation. Then I'll remind you, feel free to chime into the Q&A tool anytime during the session if you have questions, or we can wait till the end. So what is the PIT? It's the study and application of technology expertise. And when we say expertise, that's not only provided by technologists, it's actually a community of people coming together to look at how the technology expertise can really generate public benefits, promote public good, and emphasize social justice, particularly for historically underserved communities. And so when these different pieces that come together, it's like everyone has a piece of the puzzle, and everyone needs to bring their pieces together to really get the maximum out of the Pitt University network, as well as Pitt in general. Some of the characteristics of Pitt, which is kind of unique, is the fact that they're really talking about people-centered problem solving. So this is not just designing for the community, but designing with the community. So coming together early in that process and really looking at interdisciplinary collaboration. We aren't just talking about technologists, but also policymakers, social scientists, ethicists, designers, organizers, and communities all coming together at once. And I have a background in systems engineering as well as electrical engineering, but the systems engineering piece really helped me realize the importance of concurrent engineering, where you bring all the stakeholders together early in the process to really get maximum value. And this is kind of what Pitt is looking to do. Also, we're looking at ethical and responsible innovation as one of the Pitt characteristics, questioning not only how to build technology, but in some cases, should the technology even be built at all? And then really looking at the understanding the societal impacts, whether the legal, ethical, policy considerations, all those should be part of the consideration as the technology is under development. So why does PIT matter? I mean, technology we know shapes everything. It used to be that, oh, technology shapes everything from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. But now you got smartwatches even while you sleep, right? That can monitor your sleep patterns. You got technology during the day, smart appliances. You got throughout the day at school, you have technology. And then healthcare, voting, everything is shaped by technology. So PIT helps to ensure that communities have a voice in how technology affects them. The harms that potentially could be coming about for future technologies are anticipated and hopefully mitigated. And the benefits are distributed equitably. Systems uphold democratic values and human rights. So a lot there is a lot of responsibility goes into technology development that sometimes technology is typically motivated more by just profit margins. So the Pitt University Network was actually launched in 2019 by New America, Ford Foundation, and the Hewlett Foundation. And it became a consortium of colleges and universities really building on the principles associated with Pitt itself. And the concept is about preparing Pitt professionals for public good. And even though it's Pitt UN, University Network, I should note that this is also including community colleges. So what do Pitt professionals even do? I think a lot of these things are just examples. Community-centered design and research, starting with the community itself in that process, really looking at bringing communities together with the technologists and the researchers to really determine what are the issues and what are the problems that could be addressed with various technologies. Then looking at algorithmic fairness and transparency, and how we can make sure that the algorithms that are used in various technologies are done in a fair and transparent methodology. Then looking at digital rights and privacy, also civic technology and government innovation, A lot of times when we think of innovation, we think of just, again, how do you get something that's going to make the most money or trying to change the way we do it? But there's innovation that can also be done in the way we do government issues as well. Then looking at equitable access to digital infrastructure, as well as technology policy and regulation and responsible AI governance. And, there's a lot of discussion about these roles and how certain roles might endure beyond AI. And these are the types of things I think that could provide graduates a leg up when they're looking to graduate and have additional expertise in these types of areas. In fact, there was a recent headline in the Intelligencer in New York, and the headline read, "The Campus AI Crisis. Young graduates can't find jobs. Colleges know they have to do something, but what?" So in this actual article, there was mention of Stanford's Digital Economy Lab that did some studies about some of the Gen Z graduates, and they found that areas such as software development, the graduation percentage of actually finding employment was down 16%. And at the same time, the more experienced workers didn't see the same impact. And the kind of result was the fact that the practical know-how and the better understanding uh, of when AI is hallucinating or wrong or just not useful was part of being experienced. And you didn't have that experience if you just came out with the technology piece. Schools are really struggling to update the curricula, a mismatch between what colleges say the degree is for and what the labor market really needs in a post-AI world. And then the practical experience and durable advantage of graduates with the Pitt UN experience offers some of this practical experience that could be valuable as you look into the marketplace, as well as valuable for the schools as they look to adjust their curriculum to provide an advantage for their graduates. So Pitt UN, after it was started, actually had a mission and vision statement, and the mission included advancing Pitt through education, research, practice, and helping to ensure technology serves society equitably. That's a tough word to say every time I say it. Then the vision was actually to have technology that strengthens democracy, communities help shape these systems, and institutions govern responsibly, because there's a lot of responsibility to being able to govern effectively. Then equity guides innovation. And as lead of innovation at NASA, I get a lot of passion around the word innovation. But from a NASA standpoint, we kind of use innovation as being transforming diverse ideas into value. And this is the kind of the idea behind Pitt UN when they talk about innovation in an equitable manner, as well as having that diversity of ideas to come together for this innovation. And building national infrastructure for the Pitt talent pipeline. And talent is at the intersection of technology, policy, ethics, and community. So what does Pitt UN do? Um, Lots of things going on in the Pitt UN community, and these are just a few examples of the types of things that they are working towards. First of all, they're looking to strengthen the academic programs at the universities and colleges that are part of the Pitt UN network. This includes things like adjusting curriculum, looking at coursework, the majors and minors, various certificates at the community college level, and experiential learning opportunities, as well as looking for opportunities to look for joint proposals and activities that could cross the Pitt UN network as well. And ultimately, they're looking to build the talent pipelines. This includes fellowships, internships, apprenticeships, career pathways to, again, really have those opportunities to strengthen the graduates in the Pitt UN field. Pitt UN also supports research and innovation with faculty research, community engaged models, again, providing opportunities for research in the real world and the communities. And they're really looking to grow the national network. Right now, it's about 60 plus institutions, convenings, and working groups. And then there's a lot of collaboration with partners in communities. One of the things that is ongoing, I actually had a chance to attend the Pitt UN Summit this year. I was actually contracted to do some work in futures and innovation, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Some of the outcomes of the Pitt UN Summit this year were real-time future casting, where there was activities associated with what is needed now to enhance the future of Pitt regardless of what the actual future is. And we use strategic foresight as some of the methodologies that were incorporated into those future casting exercises, looking at things that came out of that discussion, where broader awareness of PIT is one of the key things that needed for the enhancement of the future of PIT. A lot of people just haven't heard of it. What is the narrative building and the civic engagement? How do you make sure that the narrative is clear for what PIT is and what PIT is not? Because a lot of people try to change the narrative, and that can be detrimental to the overall future of the PIT UN network. Building the field by supporting talent and training really across government, nonprofit, and technology sectors. And this includes both research, advocacy, implementation, and legislative roles. And then really looking to see what are the markets that are really ready for PIT products? What are the low-hanging fruit? You don't want to start off with the toughest challenges, but build momentum by determining some of the markets that are really ready for PIT and using those to build that momentum for larger efforts. So when we're trying to reach out to stakeholders in the PIT UN community, I think the various stakeholders have to see their value proposition. So for universities, the value proposition is kind of clear. You can see new programs, potential funding opportunities, and visibility for your particular university or college. For students, it's about career pathways, really looking at community-driven technology, how you can get impact from those technologies that are derived, as well as experience that will help you in the larger workforce activities. For the government, it's access to talent and research for responsible technology governance. I know as a former NASA employee, we did a lot of tech transfer activities, but they were even looking at technologies of the future up front that had benefit for us here on Earth. In space applications effort, where we're looking to take advantage of the microgravity environment to produce medicines that are even produced better and more high quality in space than they are here on Earth. Those types of activities are going on, and you need special researchers who have that talent for not just the technology, but also the needs of the communities. And the communities themselves, the technology that reflects the public needs. This is key. Nobody can tell the communities what they need without having the communities involved in that process. And philanthropy. Scalable, systemic impact on democracy and equity are at the heart of a lot of the philanthropy efforts. So the future directions for PIT and PIT UN is really to expand membership and expand awareness and the reach of the PIT UN network, really coming together with various partners. In fact, there will actually be two partnership opportunities coming up, both in March in a couple of weeks, and I'll be participating along with Dr. Quincy Brown, who is also going to be in this effort to look at the HBCU AI Con, looking at the futures scenarios in that particular opportunity with HBCUs in the AI realm, as well as with the nonprofits and the technology conference NTN that is going to be going on up in the Detroit area. So these are opportunities to where PIT is looking to partner with these entities to talk about the future and how they can really be using to strengthen those partnerships in the future. And looking at how we can really scale PIT education. Like ideally in the future, it'd be great if someone said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they said, I want to be a PIT technologist. Of course, right now they wouldn't even know what that is, but the idea of the future where you'll be able to start even at a younger age to really inform students about the opportunities in the PIT arena. Then looking to deepen community research, really being able to involve the communities and be able to come up with things that can build on the research that's being done in the communities for actual systems. And ultimately, they'd love to be able to build national standards, things that will help communities as well as the various government entities to look at ways to standardize what should be done in terms of technology and communities. So I've got several resources here on how to engage, including the PIT UN website. You can just click on these and go to particular activities, as well as joining regional hubs. They actually have hubs that are based on various regions of the country, where you can come together with other entities, colleges, universities, nonprofits that are in your particular region, and work on challenges or look for ways to partner with those other entities in a more effective way. And of course, I mentioned earlier about the PIT UN Summit, which is an annual event don't know if they've gotten the data established yet, but they do have the PIT um, workshops and the activities emails that can come out to really make sure you stay informed on when the annual summit will be announced. And they have technology for change hackathons, which are challenges based on a lot of the activities and challenges that the communities face. And they come together to actually try to hack those challenges by producing technologies or research activities that really can address those challenges. So in closing, PIT UN really seeks to build this foundation for technology that strengthens democracy. It really is centered around communities and cultivates leaders that are ensuring technology serves the public interest. Still an increasing need for PIT professionals, increasing the awareness of PIT as a program, and looking at how we can incorporate the trusted and equitable AI as part of that mentality for PIT professionals, really addressing community concerns. And I'll be glad to assist in making any connections with anyone who's interested in learning more about PIT. I've got my information on this final slide here. Kenneth Wright, kwright@qem.org. We also have the QEM events page with a lot of the events that are coming up, as well as the Heroes webpage. And I'd love to get your feedback on the webinar, what we can do to make these better in the future. Thank you very much.
And I would like to invite anyone from the audience to raise their hand, and Yulia has raised her hand. I am going to take her off mic. Yulia, you have the floor.
Okay, unmuted myself. Hi, everybody. Ken, thank you so much. That was very interesting to me, and I worked at NASA or adjacent to NASA for many years. Love this initiative. I have several questions. First one is who actually decides what qualifies as public interest, and also how to measure this impact.
Okay, I'll just take it one at a time since you have multiple questions.
Okay. Actually, there are more questions, but like this is two-sided question, but I'll continue after that.
Okay, yeah, no, that'd be good. So in terms of the public interest and who decides public interest, the good thing about that is the public actually determines that. So the idea is not to be able to determine what is public interest without involving them, making sure we involve the communities and the public in the decisions as to what is the technology that is most important to them, most valuable to them, and can impact the way they do their lives and the challenges that they're facing in the communities and the public. So it's not like these activities are going outside of the public, but they actually have community events with the public as part of the activities to really determine those priorities.
Yeah, I think I understand that. I'm just trying to wrap my head about how logistically, if you have several programs, how to decide that this program is or this technology has higher potential than next technology, and like how to invest in that and things like that. Is there like
Yeah.
a panel or a board or that consists of representatives from different universities, for example? Or how is that decided?
Yeah, no, the universities that are part of the network each have representatives on the Pitt Union network itself. So those are typically when they come together, the representatives from each college or university are part of that invitee list that come there and kind of represent that particular college or university or entity or the community. So they have the representatives from communities, nonprofits also are there. And that's part of what they do when they come to these summits or even the regional hubs, if it's more regional events. They make sure that each of those entities that are represented from the communities, from the colleges come together as part of those discussions. So yes, they do have representatives from the various colleges and universities.
I'd like to interrupt for just a second because this is in line with the question I had, and maybe it will help also respond to Yulia's question. If I want to join Pitt, is there a group of people that decides whether what I'm doing is PIT worthy, or does anyone who wants to join? And is there a cost to it?
Yeah, it's no cost to join. There is cost for attending some of the conferences and those types of things, but there's no cost to join. And anyone can attend. They'll be glad to have you. In fact, I can connect you all with the the CEO of the Pitt UN. So they have full-time staff that's actually there, as well as the representatives from the various colleges and universities that coordinate the various events as well as the inputs. But it's not like they're dictators either. So if a college or university wants to do something that's not a Pitt technology, it's not that says, oh, you have to do this, but it's looking for ways to collaborate with the communities, with the colleges and universities to come up with something that's a win-win where the community might have some state funding, say, that could help fund the Pitt activity for the college or university because they see the value for their communities. So that's looking for those win-win opportunities where you can get the joint funding or opportunities that really help move the technology along versus saying, oh, you have to do this or you can't do this. It's more about the mentality of Pitt versus really being like a dictator to really dedicate or delegate what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done. We're looking for those collaboration opportunities. Now, Yulia, I know you had some additional questions. Do you want to?
I have so many. Maybe we should just get together and talk offline because I'm actually really interested in the initiative. But the bigger question from me right now are another one is the source of funding for initiative, where the money is coming from, and how stable the funding is, because any kind of, as a technologist myself or scientist technologist myself, I know that for any technology, sustainability or a long-term planning is part of a success. So, where the money is coming from, that's my question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And some of the initial work was funded by the Ford Foundation and others, but the network of folks in Pitt UN actually go after grants. So they have, whether it's state funding or funding from private entities. They don't do a lot in the federal arena these days, as you can imagine, because that diversification of funding from the federal, they felt was something that could allow them to be more stable over time. But they do look for opportunities to take those funding, of course, again, when they come together, they say, hey, this is a good target, but there's a grant opportunity out there that we could come together and put together a proposal for. So those types of things are always ongoing, similar to the way QEM operates. You have to go after the funding from various sources, but it provides a network of folks who can kind of bring their resources to the table and produce a product, a proposal that's much stronger than if they just came as a separate entity. So that's the concept behind it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, unless there's something really urgent, I have another one. Last one, I promise. Question is, we kind of have this mindset that technology can be a blessing and a curse, right? Like pretty much everybody can attest to that. And from the blessing side, even tech that can, say, address or fix some societal problems, usually or commonly would hit a ceiling of like policy and economic issues and power and things like that. And then those become real challenges. So I just wonder how sort of holistically how PTN approaches continuing development of technology in ever-changing societal landscape, let's say this, or societal political landscape. I think it's wish a question, but let's see. I think you know where I'm going here with that.
Sure, sure. And I think, it's one of those things where you'd rather be proactive than reactive, right? Where you can get ahead of problems if possible by having discussions before technology gets fully implemented or developed to say, what could happen? How could this go wrong? And be able to kind of have some influence on the development or the implementation of those technologies that might help avoid some of the problems that could come about versus saying, oh my goodness, this thing came out and we just in a mess now. How are we going to fix it? Because that can be much more difficult once technology, as we know, once it gets out, it's out, right? And so it's oftentimes difficult to put that genie back in the box. So the idea is to really get ahead of the technology development effort, have discussions with communities and other partners to really see what can go wrong or how can we make this even better? It's always how can we maximize the impact? How can we make sure that these impacts are equitable, making sure that everyone can have those same benefits versus just having a few folks benefit and others not being able to reap those full benefits from the technology development efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll have to mull over it, but that was very informative. Thank you so much, Ken.
I'm glad to touch base offline as well.
Oh, yeah, we will.
Please raise your hand or input questions in the Q&A tool. I have a question for you, Ken. Earlier in the presentation, you referenced an article in the Intelligencer from New York Magazine. And one of the figures you gave was that there's been a 16% decline in employability for Gen Z college graduates with quote unquote traditional kind of software developer degrees or computer science degrees. What would be the role of Pitt in, say, overhauling curriculum to ensure alignment with market needs for young undergraduates or graduates of college?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that colleges and universities in general are looking at, in addition to, of course, Pitt UN, is what can you do to make sure that the value of the degree that's obtained from the college or university or the university network has maximum value and the maximum potential for the graduate to gain employment in the field that they're looking at. And so I think having those types of discussions with the various entities, whether it's the federal government, private entities, private industry, nonprofits as well, it's really seeing what is it we could add to the traditional degree to make it even more valuable, make it more AI proof, say, because that's one of the things that the new graduate might not have all the experience. And if you're just comparing the new graduate versus someone who's been there for a while, the traditional experience typically has an advantage over time because of their experience and wisdom in terms of determining things. So what is it that the new graduate could provide that maybe that is not only AI proof, but also gives them a leg up on some of the folks who might not know about Pitt UN and some of the things that it has that traditional folks who might have been working in that industry weren't aware of. So that's where Pitt UN is looking to help the universities and college look at this type of curriculum and activities and seeing maybe we should make sure that they have this interest in some social justice activities or equitable AI or policy. Policy could be mixed with the technology piece to really bring together those entities in a way that's really multidisciplinary. So when they come out, their degree is not just in one discipline, but they have some experience in working in classroom as well as working in the communities in multidisciplinary fields and be able to really add that value piece to the conversation when they come out from school. So I think it's about having those multidisciplinary conversations and really being able to have those integrated into the programs as they're developed. I know we've talked with several of the universities about, their folks in their law departments are more closely integrated now with the folks in the engineering and technology fields because they can kind of share some things from the policy perspective, or some of the folks who are working in sociology and even English and literature, where a lot of the those degrees have been everybody been going into computer science, but now it's like we need someone who has the experience in terms of both communicating, being able to tell a good story, also being able to look at the policy side of things as well as the technology piece of it.
Thank you. Additional questions from the audience? And there's one in the Q&A from Hope. Although you stated that Pitt UN wants to be ahead of upcoming technology, it does seem that there is a slight disconnect with the current industry, especially when it comes to AI. How can we make sure that we are hearing everything that is being developed in the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess, it's about having your ears to the ground, right? The more people you can have coming together to talk about activities that are not even out in the public yet, because once they're in public, it's almost too late. So how can you really get ahead of the game? So that means, really have to have people in the network who are looking at the technology development piece not just the folks who are already deploying the technologies. That's part of the conversations. And a lot of times the research that's being done on some of the technologies that is being done at the university. So the development piece with the lower TRL, we call it TRL at NASA, technology readiness level, where things are before they even get out to public. There's a lot of research being done in terms of the labs and the analysis of the work that's being done in labs, being able to have a good conversation with the research folks as well as the technology folks prior to the technology readiness level getting up to the point where it's ready to be deployed. So having those conversations early in the process, we kind of talk about that concurrent engineering, where you have the folks who touch that technology throughout the life cycle coming together early. So, you'd have the initial researchers, you'd have the folks who are actually there looking at more of the implementation, as well as how do you get rid of it? How do you transition to something else? Or how do you handle something if it goes wrong? Having those kind of conversations in a concurrent manner early in the process is something that they strive for. And to say that they're there, that's not the case. They have a lot of work to do in terms of really reaching that. But I think that's some of the goals that they aspire to in the future. Look, there's a hand up with hope.
Yep.
Hi. So I currently am working at Spelman in a very technology focused and forward place. And so when I hear you discussing about how you guys want to stay on top of technology, especially when it comes to AI, now my question becomes, how are you guys preparing for the fallout of AI? Not just the Gen Z not being able to find positions in the way that they thought, but also with incoming high school graduates that may not have the same skills because of their usage of AI, and then also just publicly how AI is shifting the public consciousness. Just curious about that.
Yeah, I think, that's definitely something that's at the forefront of a lot of the conversations we've had with QM when we start talking about the next 10, 15, 20 years. What is it that is the role of the human in the future? In some people's minds, they say, well, humans won't have anything to do when we look at the future because the AI will take over. But I think most people feel like there is a role that's humans can perform that's kind of unique because we have the feeling side of things, and we actually have the ideas that can come up even before they're in paper or somewhere where the computer can get to it. So the idea is that we would just come together and work as a community to really try to address those problems. But it's not something that's trivial. It's not a difficult problem to solve. It's very difficult for people to come together and try to anticipate what types of things will be coming out in the AI realm. And so that's again where the colleges and universities need to come together, as well as the folks with the technology development efforts, to really see what is it that we can see the role of the humans going to be. We're talking near term in the next 4 years, but like you said, after that, you got another 4 years down the road. Things could be even changed again. So it's going to be an ever-changing world. So I don't think we'll ever be in one of those situations where we'll be 10 years without change again. It's going to be something that will be ongoing and won't be something that we'll have to constantly be aware of as humans, just in terms of what the role of the human will be in the future workforce. And I'm just speaking from my perspective. I'm sure there are others who could chime in on that as well, because it's not something that anyone to me has gotten a solution to that says, oh, this is the best way to handle that, because it's changing just about every day that we're here and looking out forward, and things are going to change even faster. So great question, though. Did you say, Hope, that you are in which field are you in?
I am a product manager at Spelman College. I have experience in my previous experience was at technology, so Microsoft and Cisco and BMW, working as a technical program manager there.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about how you all, from that experience there, a lot of cutting edge technologies, how they anticipate or have anticipate, or you in your current role anticipate, what's going to be happening in the future. And again, I think coming together with various entities who are looking at the same challenges can be helpful for everyone, right? Because you just get different perspectives, getting different ideas, and really being able to come together as a group, I think is one way to really help address and come up with strategies that can be multidisciplinary. 'Cause I do think that's one of the key things is the multidisciplinary nature. That's going to be a key factor for future human involvement and future work. It can't be just like, oh, I'm just a computer scientist, or I'm just a physicist, or it's going to have to be the best opportunities will be those who have that cross-discipline expertise that can really cut across various areas and be able to add value from a human perspective that's difficult to implement in terms of AI. Great questions.
Well, I'm just going to pipe in on that just a little bit. One thing I found is I'm a computer scientist myself, and have been exploring AI quite a bit lately, like many of you have probably have. And one thing that I find with I don't care how efficient, how effective AI is, even in the arts. We've seen some beautiful things come out of AI, you know, um, visually. But what I find is because I look at a lot of it, you begin to see a sameness that AI creates. And that's not true of human creation. You see some sameness within human creation, but there's always that extra little something that an individual can bring to an artistic rendering or something of that nature. So I don't, it's certainly in the arts and the creativity aspects and things of in the innovation aspects. I don't know that AI can ever outpace a human being when it comes to bringing that freshness and that newness in. So from the scientific standpoint, this is my belief. I don't all of us have been engaged in the use of technologies, whether it's the cell phone, the computer, the VCR, that we used to have and people couldn't program. There's always a better mousetrap. And while AI to a certain point can create those better mousetraps, somebody still has to maintain the underpinning systems. And that's not something that AI can necessarily do as effectively and efficiently as human beings. Certainly not now. They'll get better at it as time goes on, but there's still always that nuance that humanity brings to creativity and innovation. So my overall concern of humans being utterly replaced by machines, AI, or whatever is not true. And I'm a fan of AI. So just want to put those 2 cents in.
Good points, Serena. And I think that piece of the emotional response and the feeling piece that the humans bring to anything that they do, whether it's writing or artistic, it's something different that humans bring in terms of that emotional piece that often gets translated to the work that they're doing that's difficult to replicate. So I can relate to that.
So to piggyback off of that, what are some uses of AI that would serve the public interest in your mind, Ken?
There are a lot of issues in terms of equity. I know that sometimes it's kind of a bad word these days. But I do think that AI, if it's trained correctly, that's one of the things, because AI is all about training, right? So if you have those biases that are there, they're going to always be there for whatever you do. But I think the idea is to how do you look at developing AI that's equitable, where you can train it in a way where those methodologies are and consider the equity piece, and where it's trusted, because AI sometimes throws out stuff that's just nonsense, right? And so how do you have a combination of equity and trust and build those into the AI models? Because if you have that, then you can imagine it could address a lot of challenges that are facing communities. But if you don't have that, then you can make even those community issues worse if you have AI that's biased and has those types of things going on. So I think it starts with making sure that you have AI that really has an equitable AI, and that was something we even looked at NASA was the equity piece in terms of AI. We had some groups come together because of the concern, just from a NASA perspective, in terms of how you can really have AI that doesn't have those types of biases as you're using them in future technologies. So I think it starts with that to me. Then you could just list a bunch of problems that we could address, right, in terms of hunger or uh, even various shortages or workforce. Typically, maybe an AI could help figure out what the human's going to do if it was in a way that was trained up properly. So,
And we have two more raised hands. I'll go to Patience first. Patience, you can come off mute.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I think I agree with you when you talk about AI and equity. Because sometimes I look at it, oh, it's a good tool, I understand that. But when we look at the playing field, do every student in my classroom have access to those tools? Then that's when the equity comes into place. I think, in my opinion, I think I really agree with you when we talk about AI. We also have to also look at equity. Do everyone have the same equipment or tools to be able to use it in equitable way? But not everybody has it. Then that means that the playing field is not balanced. So we have on scale balance for students who don't have access to those tools.
excellent point. Excellent point. And, I think a lot of the laboratories or the research of the future will be done differently. Just you might need to have a lot of equipment and things like that, but again, if you have the access to, as part of the conversation, the access to the data or what is it is that's being trained, making sure that that access is provided. It's harder to find excuses for folks not being equitable. It used to be like, oh, you have to have this special laser that needs to do 100 micron image. You don't need to do all that. You just need to provide access and make sure people have those types of things that could provide them opportunities and be able to level that playing field to really make sure that you can get those diverse ideas together for the community and how they can benefit from the various technologies.
And Hope has their hand raised. You may go off mute, Hope.
Uh, yeah, so as Pitt, when you guys are doing your research and looking into everything, including equity and development, in terms of the AI discussion, especially, uh, does the industry listen? I guess is the best way to put it, because sometimes I feel like they're pedal to the metal, full forward, not thinking things through with how they develop and present new technology. And so that creates new issues. So I guess my question here is going into Pitt and the UN and being able to say we are working towards making sure that we're being knowledgeable about new technologies, being knowledgeable about it being community driven and civic focused, and making sure that it's applicable. Is the industry actually listening to the research that is being founded? Not that it's any attack on you guys. I'm just saying that.
Oh yeah. Well, let me say too, I'm not a Pitt. This isn't a commercial for Pitt or anything. I just actually work with them on some activities as outside of this. So I don't want you to feel like you hurt my feelings. It's all good because the bottom line is they've got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do as a group because it's still AI is typically driven by the bottom dollar, right? Who gets their stuff out first, gets that market share, gets in there, be the first one to try this or that, with not as much consideration about what's the impact of this on communities or what is the impact of this for humans even at large or safety or those types of things. So I think there's a lot of work to do, but there are some large entities who realize that this is something that's important and are starting to come on board and become, advocates for these types of approaches. But it's definitely not something that's, predominant. It's one more in the minority right now in terms of those companies that really consider these types of things. But one thing that can change that is the public, right? The community is coming together and say, we really want this. We need this, and be able to make that strong case for why it's needed and being able to have that as part of the conversation. But it's still not done. I agree that it's not to the point where we can say, oh, we're good now. We have a long way to go before I feel like we're in a good place for these types of efforts.
Um,
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I would just say that I think, training up, and that's one of the things that I think Pitt wants to do is to try to have a pipeline started so that future graduates will have this mentality as they're coming out into the industries and into the various entities in government or private industry. You can imagine if people have that ingrained into them before they get to the developmental stage, you'd be better off than folks who haven't heard of this at all and just start doing development without even thinking about that. So the idea is to have this pipeline started early and be able to have future folks graduate with this mentality and be able to incorporate that into various activities.
And we have a open question in the Q&A box from Zelalem Mersha. Alluding to the same AI discussion, what might be the long-term perspective of institutions such as Pitt UN in balancing their role of defending public interest and job security, while also encouraging universities to adapt their curricula toward an AI integrated future? Partly or mostly answered, but just wondering if any additional info as someone directly engaged with technology.
Yeah. What was the question part of that? Or if you want to
What
come
might
off
be
off
the long-term perspective of institutions in balancing their role of defending public interest and job security while also encouraging universities to adapt their curricula toward an AI integrated future?
Okay. Yeah, I think that we talked a little bit about the value proposition. And I think that's where the universities or the various industries have to see the value proposition for approaching things from this type of methodology where you think about the public interest. And that goes down to their graduates, if it's a college or university, if their graduates aren't finding jobs, that's not going to be good for them, right? So that is the role of Pitt is to help them look at these types of activities, and whether it's talking about AI or other technologies, to really consider things that might make them more marketable in the future and having that as part of the conversation, as part of their curriculum as they're putting that together. For industry, again, it's just going to be about the industries themselves being in a position where they can see the value proposition. Because if they're just raking in the money and aren't even caring about anything but the stockholders, and shareholders and those types of things, then it's tough to break into that and say, okay, now we want you to consider the public. Yeah, it's kind of a challenge. So how do you incorporate those conversations early into the process to make sure that it is a part of the equation that's being done? And there was some talk about government regulation, all those types of things. It's difficult after the fact. I mean, once the technologies are out there, it's difficult for government to regulate, but that's something that's on the table as well. But again, it's difficult challenges, no easy answers, unfortunately.
And Quincy has a comment. Part of the solution is that by educating more students with a Pitt-focused understanding and experience of technology will ideally lead to more responsible technology development.
Great way to state it, Quint. Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like that pipeline we were talking about. You have the pipeline of folks who actually have that as a mentality.
Hope, feel free to go off mute.
Hi, sorry again. Quick
Don't be
question.
sorry. It's all great. Great conversation.
If you are an employee at a school that's not currently a member of Pitt, could you still apply to a Pitt grant?
Uh, I think so. Let me say, I will make sure you just drop me an email and I will connect you with the executive director of Pitt and you can talk to her directly. And
Okay,
we'll make sure we make those connections for anyone who's interested so they can, they're aware that I'm doing this discussion today. So they were excited about being able to reach this community and look for follow-up. So I'm sure it's ways we can make sure that we get those connections done.
sounds great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And Erin Lynch has a comment in the Q&A, and I believe this is in reference to the use of the term pipeline, that when we're talking about trajectories of scientific development that we use pathways instead of pipelines, because pipelines tend to allude to dehumanize or treat scientists like commodities. So pathways instead are a better way to think about the trajectories of scientific growth and development and education.
Sounds good to me. Pathways it is. In fact, NASA had a pathways program for all of their students. I should have used that term, but I think Pitt had just used their pipeline term, but I'll pass it along to them as well.
We've got about 4 minutes for more conversation and questions if there are any. Well, thank you so much for attending today, everyone. Ken's closing slide has QR codes to the QEM events page where you can sign up for forthcoming webinars, the Heroes webpage where you can connect to our Heroes Fellows, and the webinar feedback form. We'd love your feedback for today's webinar.
Thank you all. Great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.